Every city has a few stories it repeats. In Lagos, one of them was Amara. She was the kind of beauty that people pause to admire. Wherever she goes, she exudes a special, magical, magnetic glow that makes men forget their names. Drivers slow their cars just to watch her, and makes other women envious of the attention she receives. She was known for her beauty, but more precisely, for her consistency. No one had seen her without makeup. Not neighbors, not colleagues, not men who believed they had earned intimacy. Her face was always finished, not heavily, not extravagantly, just complete. People called it vanity. It wasn't. It was discipline. Because Amara had one rule: quiet, absolute, and entirely non-negotiable. No living soul would ever see her bare face, not by daylight, not by candlelight, not at any cost. Once, a banker took her to dinner overlooking the harbor in Victoria Island. All candles, imported wine, and delicious dishes, and an amazing view. He was a charming man, the kind of man that fills the silence with the right words. He was thoughtful in the way men are when they expect to be admired for it. That night, she leaned back in her chair and deliberately let her mascara smudge at the corners, letting her foundation sit cracked along her jaw. She watched him carefully across the table. The next morning, seeing her before she had fully retouched her face, he smiled and said, "You look better like this, more natural." She smiled, warm and practiced, said nothing, but something inside her closed. A door gently sealed shut. He meant it as praise. She understood that, but something in the ease of his statement unsettled her, as though he had uncovered something private and assumed it belonged to him. She withdrew slowly after that. Fewer replies, longer pauses, eventually silence. He called her complicated. She did not argue. Another man, at Tarquaby on a warm Saturday, full of laughter and gentle breeze, laughed when she said she did not want to swim. He took her wrist and pulled her lightly toward the water, playful, harmless. She froze. He apologized when he realized she wasn't laughing, but the damage had already been done. It was not about the ocean, it was about being handled without consent. She ended it a week later. These incidents were small when recounted aloud, even she knew that, but she had learned to pay attention to small things. Large disappointments often began that way. There were many others, men who sent cars to her gate on Sunday mornings, who lined up outside the salon where she worked as a senior beauty consultant just to catch 5 minutes of her time. There were the ones who begged to see her natural beauty, who treated it like a prize they were owed, a trophy of intimacy they believed they had earned. Each one was filed away and forgotten. For Amara, the makeup was never about beauty, it was about survival. It was the wall she had spent decades building, brick by careful brick between herself and the kind of pain that breaks a person down to nothing. Her dressing table was orderly to the point of ritual, brushes aligned, bottles grouped by size, cotton pads stacked neatly in a dish, makeup products arranged dutifully. Morning and night she sat before the mirror, even when ill, even when tired and trembling. Once, when a friend visited and found her napping on the parlor sofa, Amara woke up before the lady could even take a proper look and immediately reached for her compact powder, applying it on her face before she could even offer a proper greeting. Her friends joked that she would be buried with her lipstick still fresh. She always laughed along, fake and practiced laughter, as pieces of her broke away. After midnight, when Lagos quieted into a softer version of itself, she sat alone before the mirror with nothing but a dim lamp in her own reflection. Something beneath the laughter would tremble. She would remove her makeup slowly and then reapply it before sleeping. The habit had long outgrown necessity. "This is me," she would whisper to the glass. "This is what they love. Without this, there is nothing left of me worth keeping."
Without this, she sometimes thought, what remains? The thought embarrassed her. She rarely allowed it to surface fully. At 35, she had returned home one evening to find half a wardrobe empty. Femi, the man she had planned to marry, had left. No argument preceded it, no warning, only a brief note that said he needed something different. She understood what that meant. The woman he left for was younger. The humiliation had been quiet, but total. What wounded her most was not anger, it was disposability, the sense that she had been replaced without ceremony. It was on that night, wandering without direction, that she met the old woman by the roadside fire. The bargain seemed simple. Preserved youth in exchange for emotional restraint. Never weep for another with genuine grief. Not once. At 35, that felt manageable. She agreed. Periods passed. Then, decades. She did not age. Men admired her, some loved her, some died before her. She attended funerals where she looked the same as she had the day she met them. She learned to leave relationships before suspicion grew too loud. It was lonely, but predictable. Predictability felt safe. She met Kolade in an exhibition in Surulere. He stood beside her studying a painting, speaking more to the canvas than to her. The artist paints this bridge often, different light each time. Maybe he trusts it, she replied. He smiled, not impressed, just pleased by the exchange. She studied him then. He was older, probably mid-50s, with a kind of face that suggested he had once been through life itself, but chose not to let himself be made bitter by it. He did not pursue her aggressively. He did not comment excessively on her appearance. He asked about books she read, about her childhood in Enugu, about what she feared losing. He walked with her through Lekki Conservation on weekday mornings when the city was still cool and unhurried, and he never once reached for her face. He never bargained for more than she offered. He simply walked beside her and made her feel, for the first time in longer than she could measure, that she did not have to perform. She began to love him the way old trees love the earth, slowly, silently, without theater. Once, on her balcony in Gabata, eating from the same pot because neither of them felt formal, he said, "Sometimes I feel like you're careful with me." She was. She could have told him everything then. Instead, she said, "I've learned to be." He accepted that answer, though he sensed it was incomplete. For the first time in many years, she felt the strain of concealment. When Kolade proposed, sitting across from her at a quiet garden restaurant in Iki, he did not make a spectacle of it. He placed the ring on the linen tablecloth and told her he wanted to build a life with her, not possess her, not complete her, just build alongside her, whatever that looked like. Amara looked at the ring for a long moment, then at his face. She saw nothing there but sincerity. Their wedding was the kind Lagos remembers across several seasons. The hall in Ikeja glittered with gold accents and laughter and the smell of 100 different perfumes. Amara stood at the entrance in ivory and deep coral, and the guests agreed quietly among themselves that they had never seen a bride so perfectly assembled, so luminous, so untouched by time. Kolade stood at the front and looked at her the way men in old novels look at things they cannot believe are real. Looked at her with uncomplicated joy. The vows were spoken, the rings were exchanged. The night opened up with music in the particular Lagos joy that takes over a room and makes everyone briefly forget their troubles. Amara danced, she laughed, she accepted compliments with composed grace, and underneath it all, deep and quiet and persistent, the dread moved through her like a current. Tonight, she kept thinking, tonight the distance ends. Tonight there is no more glass wall. Underneath it all, she was aware of time. Not mystically, practically. She had delayed the truth for as long as she could. The fall in the hotel suite was abrupt. One misstep, a sharp sound against wood. She dropped beside him, pressing her hand to his temple. When she called his name, her voice broke on the second attempt. The tears came without warning. Not careful tears.
Not careful tears, not restrained, real ones. For the first time in 70 years, she forgot the condition of the bargain. She wept because she thought she was about to lose him. When he regained consciousness, relief washed over her until she saw his expression change. He was not looking at the blood. He was looking at her. "What happened?" he asked quietly. She turned toward the mirror. The face staring back at her was her own, but reclaimed by time. Lines settled deeply, skin softened, age no longer postponed. She felt no shock, only recognition. She told him everything while sitting on the floor: the old woman, the clay container, the condition, the years that followed. "How old are you?" he asked. 104. He sat with that for a long time. "You should have told me," he said eventually. "I was afraid," she replied. "That I would leave?" She nodded. He did not deny it. That was what hurt most. "I don't know what I would have done," he said honestly, "but I deserved to know." She understood. As the years returned to her body in full, it was not violent, the lines deepening past wrinkles into the geography of extreme age, the hair thinning until pale strands released themselves to the floor, the spine curving further under a weight that had been deferred for 70 decades. Her breathing grew shallow, her hand grew lighter in his. It was settling, a correction. "I didn't want to be alone," she said. He took her hand. He did not pull away. "I was here," he answered. It was not an accusation. It was a fact. By dawn, the city had resumed its rhythm: traffic, vendors, ordinary noise. Kolade stood by the window before making any calls, straightened his jacket. He looked at the woman on the floor one final time, at the face that had finally, completely stopped performing. He thought she looked, at the very end, like someone who had been relieved of something heavy. The room felt smaller without an illusion in it. Amara had spent a century preserving her youth to prevent abandonment. In the end, what undid her was not age, it was love strong enough to make her forget to protect herself. And perhaps that is the quiet tragedy, not that she grew old, but that she never believed she could be loved while doing so. There is a kind of beauty that protects itself so fiercely it forgets what it was protecting. Amara spent a century guarding her face and never once considered that the thing most worth protecting was the truth beneath it. In the end, it was not age that undid her. It was love, the one force she had spent a century both chasing and keeping at arm's length. And perhaps that is the only honest lesson any of us can take from a story like hers, that the walls we build to keep heartbreak out are the same walls that keep everything worth having from getting in.